No.
The Finance Ministry has unveiled an ambitious National Monetization Pipeline which aims to garner about 6 lakh crore rupees over the next 4 years by monetizing various assets owned by the government in sectors like rail, road, aviation, gas pipelines, etc. Now, this plan has been put together by the NITI Aayog, and now a lot of details of this are out in the public domain. But how will it actually be executed? Because the devil lies in the details and execution is key. To speak on some of these aspects, I'm joined now by CEO of NITI Aayog, Mr. Amitabh Kant. Mr. Kant, thank you so much for speaking with us here on ET Now. Let me begin by asking you about the idea behind the National Monetization Pipeline. Various forms of private-public partnership have been thought of before. It is not really new. Assets which have been carved out for privatization or disinvestment have also been there in the public domain. But this seems to be a more holistic plan on a larger scale. What was the thought behind it?
So Tamanna, government is good at executing. It's fairly poor in operation and maintenance. And therefore, it's very important that we are able to use our existing asset base in a very, very efficient manner. It should also lead to enhanced capex spending and building world-class infrastructure. We should have a multiplier impact on growth and employment, and all this should lead to revival of credit flow in the economy. And the proceeds from the monetizing of the existing assets should lead to new infrastructure creation. We should keep recycling the future assets and improving the existing base. The key principle is that the ownership of assets remain with the government. At the end of the time period, there is a mandatory handback. These are very structured contractual partnership with key performance indicators and performance standards. And these are all brownfield projects. These are de-risked projects where revenue stream is already coming in and value is in the form of consideration and private investment, which will then bring in efficiency and better management. And we've looked at a 4-year period from 22 to 25. We've looked at the core infrastructure assets of central government ministries and public sector undertakings. And we've looked at different models, the brownfield models of operate, maintain, transfer, toll, operate, transfer, operation, maintenance and development, rehabilitate, operate, maintain, transfer. And we've also looked at InvITs, that is Infrastructure Investment Trust, and REITs, which is the Real Estate Investment Trust. These are structured financing vehicles, and this is the way infrastructure will be managed in future. These are the models for monetization of core assets.
So, Mr. Kant, I recall during the press briefing yesterday, there was a comment made that this is in no way a process of selling the family silver. I'm assuming that comment was made knowing the variety of reactions which would come in, and one of them which has come in from former Union Minister and Congress member Jairam Ramesh is that this is legalized loot and organized plunder. How would you respond to these reactions that we're giving away very precious national assets?
Well, asset monetization has been going on in this country for a very long time. How were private sector brought into the road sector? How was, for a very long time, NHAI has been doing this. How has private sector been brought into the airport sector? So many, how did GMR, GVK get into the airports? All these. This has been going on for a very long time in the country. It's just that new models of InvITs and REITs have come in, and we've expanded the scope of this to many other sectors. So if somebody says that this is an organized root and plunder. This is uncalled for, simply because this has been going on for the last, I think, at least minimum 15 to 20 years, ever since the NHI was constituted. Several roads are being managed privately for a very, very long time. In fact, the Congress government in Maharashtra has just done asset monetization of the Bombay and Bombay-Pune Expressway. What else is that?
Yeah. No, absolutely. Asset monetization in different forms have been there. This time, though, this plan has been launched in the second year of a pandemic with a fairly ambitious target. So 88,000 crore rupees is the target for this financial year. Do you see any challenges in achieving it?
Well, there are always challenges while executing across ministries. There are more than about 12 line ministries and departments. There are 20 plus asset class. The total value is about 6 lakh crore over a 4-year period, which is about 14% of the center's outlay under the NIP, that is the National Infrastructure Plan. The top 3 sectors by value are roads, railways, and power. But this is the first time that we brought in not merely roads, etc., but we've already had a very successful monetization of 5 assets via Power Grid InvIT, raising 7,700 crore. We'll push this further. We've also looked at a whole range of power generation, especially hydel and solar assets, which are with NTPC, NHPC, and Neyveli Lignite Corporation as well. We've looked at pipelines, which is natural gas, and how to build an InvIT model through pipelines, and we've looked at PPPs and InvITs for petroleum products and pipelines, which are with IOC and HPCL. We have looked at warehousing assets, which are with Central Warehousing Corporation and FCI, and we've looked at, of course, the railways, which has a fairly big share in NMP of 26%. And we've also looked at not merely railway station passenger trains, but also hill railways and railway stations. So these will be managed over a long period of time by the private sector, and the government will get revenue. Once the private sector steps in, you will have better operation, better management. With the revenue receipts, you will be able to invest into newer and newer infrastructure, and the country will get into this virtuous cycle of creating better infrastructure from resources that you have already created, already developed infrastructure.
So, but the question is that will the private sector come in and have an appetite for these investments? I'm asking in the backdrop of, what was attempted last September, and you and I actually had an opportunity to speak about it when the railways put out some routes for privatization, and the response has been less than tepid. Even things like disinvestment of Air India or BPCL are still works in progress because of what we are seeing globally and investor appetite.
So let's not compare this with disinvestment, which is outright privatization, whereas here it's management. And here we've already had a successful example of Power Grid InvIT raising 7,700 crores. We've already had about 1,400 kilometers with a value of 17,000 crores in the road highway sector, which has been done. The world is awash with money. There is no shortage of money around the world. In fact, there's too much of liquidity. It's how you structure the project. If you structure it well, you have good transaction advisors, you follow good inputs, structure it well, it will be a win-win for the country and for the private sector. And the country will end up creating very good operation and management models out of this.
Mr. Kant, I want to ask you about how states will come in. As has been mentioned, this is a plan which to work, state governments also need to come in. They also have a large number of assets to monetize. Do states seem to be on board, and will there be that kind of compliance and cooperation from state governments as well?
So the volume 1 and volume 2 that we released yesterday covers only the central government, and it covers the different models so that everybody understands what the different models of asset monetization across the world are. It's also important to tell you that Australia, Indonesia, many countries across the world are actually different models of asset monetization have been practiced across the world. So there's nothing new in this. It's a practice which has been going on. In fact, the colony in which I stay, New Moti Bagh colony, where government officers stay, is nothing but a case of asset monetization, where a land was sold to, during the Congress period time, to a small plot of land was sold to Leela Hotel, 700 crores was received, and with that the entire colony was developed, and in addition to that 300 crore was put back into the treasury of the government of India. So this is nothing new, and therefore many states, we've had 4 or 5 workshops with the states, and all states are very keen to pursue this. We have a very active engagement with state underway. 26 states have appointed their nodal officers. We've had, one of the unique things that the finance ministry has done is to put 5,000 crore budgeted in its budget for 21-22, and 33%. What the government has said is that if you disinvest or do asset monetization out of the realized value which is put into the state consolidated fund, 33% of the realized value will be given as an incentive to the state government. Now that is a huge, huge incentive. 33% of the realized value going to the states is a huge, huge incentive from asset monetization or disinvestment. And therefore, you can't have a better incentive scheme for the states to push it. But as I said, the Maharashtra government has already done asset monetization of the Mumbai-Pune road highway, expressway, and it got a very good response. And therefore, all these states which want to create new infrastructure, all of them will do asset monetization. This asset monetization will be the key strategy of investment creation in the coming days and for better operation and maintenance. What has been driven by Government of India will become the mode of development of infrastructure across India in all the states in the coming days.
So the finance minister also spoke about how the National Monetization Plan will be co-terminus with the very ambitious National Infrastructure Plan, which was announced in the budget. How will that work, Mr. Kant? Can you share more details?
So as I said, the National Infrastructure Pipeline is also for the same period, 22 to 25. This asset monetization plan is also for the same period of 22 to 25. You need resources for infrastructure creation. How do you do this? Either you take government resources. Now, government resources, if you keep using government resources, you will never bring better operation and maintenance in these infrastructure. And therefore, the objective is that 14% of the center's outlay under NIP should be used through asset monetization. If you are able to, the more and more assets you give out for better maintenance and operation, the resources that you get, you'll build more roads, you'll build more warehouses, you'll build more railway stations, you will create more and more gas pipelines, you'll do more transmission line, and therefore the intention is that you keep expanding the list of infrastructure across the country. That is the objective. You do more and more infrastructure creation with asset monetization. The objective always is that there should be a multiplier impact on growth and employment. And when the private sector comes in, it comes in with its own money, but it raises credit from the financial institution, and therefore it revives credit flow. It'll lead to enhanced capex spending. And my view is that the best way for India to go on a sustained growth over a long period of time is to focus on infrastructure, infrastructure, and infrastructure.
Absolutely. Mr. Kant, since I have the opportunity to speak with you, allow me to switch gears and get a larger perspective from you on where we are on our recovery mode post-pandemic. we have now seen from data that the impact of the second wave, at least on the economy, was not as bad as was expected. Of course, it had a huge impact on human lives and illness, etc. But on the economy, it was not as bad as was expected. Where do you see the pace of recovery coming from? And are we seeing private investments returning? Because that was what was sorely lacking in the last few months.
Well, the high frequency indicators of the economy, recent trends show that we should be getting back into growth in a big way. I'm quite confident that we will revive growth. I'm quite absolutely confident. If you look at the present demand of two-wheelers, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, the demand seems to be getting back. The consumer demand seems to be getting back. I also am of the view that there will be increased thrust from government towards infrastructure creation, which is what this asset monetization is all about. I also am of the view that states are going to drive infrastructure creation, and increasingly we will see more and more private sector investment increasingly getting in in a vast range of sectors. I personally feel that we are going to get back into growth trajectory in a big way.
Just one last question, Mr. Kant, about a space which I know is dear to you. What is happening in the Indian startup space right now is astonishing. We're churning out unicorns at breakneck speed. Many of them are getting listed as well, giving an opportunity to Indian investors to join the party, so to speak. Do you think that this is a sustainable rate of development, and what are your observations on what we're seeing in the startup space right now?
So 22 unicorns during the course of this year. And what it has demonstrated is that actually, while we've had a crisis of COVID, this has also been an opportunity to technologically leapfrog. This is a massive opportunity for digitization. The only companies which will add value, which will grow and expand, will be those which are going to focus on digitization, which are going to focus on lean manufacturing, and those which will focus on green manufacturing. Companies will have to go green in the context of the climate change in the coming years, because the world will value those companies. Europe and America will demand green products, and therefore if you want to penetrate export markets, you need green products. And therefore my view is that the crisis has been utilized by the Indian startup movement to push for digitization in a very big way. And we are seeing the results of that in the number of unicorns, 22 unicorns this year. I also believe that Indian companies and Indian people and Indian family businesses should all invest into our startup movement. The key is that the risk capital must find its way into the startup movement in India, and Indians must drive the growth and evolution of the startup movement in India.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Kant, for your time. We were speaking with Amitabh Kant, CEO of the NITI Aayog.
Thank you. Thank you.